You're not just learning to write, but you're writing to learn.
For our episode today, we have two SRSD experts. Please welcome Steve Graham. Steve is a SRSD researcher at Arizona State University and is also known for his advisory roles with the National Writing Project and the What Works Clearinghouse. And Ashley Barkle. Ashley is a SRSD research assistant and special education teacher, also at Arizona State University. Ashley, tell us about the SRSD reading strategy TWA and how it helps students with writing, but also how it helps on the state standards.
With the Common Core state standards, a lot of students in elementary school are being asked to use source text, and many of them have not been trained to actually read a text to find information that they'll then use in their writing. So it's really helpful when they're trying to master that standard. So TWA is a reading strategy that can be incorporated into the SRSD framework. So TWA takes it a step further by using source text or informational text and teaching students how to take facts and pieces of information from that text as well as information from their own ideas in order to create a stronger persuasive essay. So you're combining the writing strategies along with this reading strategy, TWA. And we had some interviews with students, 2 years teaching students using TWA and SRSD. They thought the tricks were very helpful to help them become stronger writers and write stronger opinion essays.
Thanks, Ashley. Now let's turn our attention to the recommendations taken from the What Works Clearinghouse webinar. Steve tells us how reading and writing strategies help students advance their learning skills in both reading and writing.
I want to really emphasize that these recommendations are appropriate for not just English teachers, but biology, chemistry, math, social studies, and so forth. So when we use writing to think about reading, we're focused in on the emphasis of writing and reading to make a difference in writing. Now, why would we recommend something like this? Well, one of the primary reasons is that when you think about reading and writing, although they differ, the pools of knowledge on which they draw have a lot of similarities in them in terms of strategies, knowledge, and skills to create meaning. So if students are writing on a particular topic in a social studies class, we want to point out that they draw upon their previous knowledge to help them understand what they're reading. When they write about the same knowledge, they're drawing on those same sources to gather ideas. We also want to use a variety of written exemplars to highlight the key features of text. So in terms of thinking about helping students make that connection between writing and reading to facilitate writing, there's a sentence starter strategy here that's presented. And I want you to think about this if you're an English teacher and you were working on something like reading The Great Gatsby. So in terms of revising meaning, you might have students use sentence starters where they think, at first I thought X about The Great Gatsby, but now I think, or my latest thought about, or I'm getting a different picture here because, and reflecting and relating. The big idea is, a conclusion I'm drawing is, the most important message is. But the basic idea here is that we use these sentence starters to help us both reading and writing about a particular topic. Another example in terms of helping students use reading to facilitate their writing is using editorials as peer and professional exemplars for students' own persuasive text. So we can read the editorials or some other type of persuasive text to identify the specific features of the editorial. We can also ask students then to reread multiple editorials to take a look to see what makes them effective. And we can do this by having both strong examples and weaker examples so that they get a sense of how those particular elements play out. Then we can ask students to write their own editorials using those same basic elements. And then just as importantly, we want to have students discuss those features with each other, places where they might want to make changes in terms of the use of those features to make their editorial even stronger and more relevant for the audience.
Next, let's hear about some of the big issues you might experience when teaching reading strategies to improve writing.
I'd love to say there's no obstacles to doing any of these, but often what we hear is from content area teachers, I don't teach reading or writing. That's not my responsibility. And so there's considerable evidence that when you have students write about what they read, it improves performance. And that's the case even with fairly simple writing activities, writing responses to homework questions, taking notes, generating your own questions for something that you've read. Another thing is that this should be a school effort, so that if we're introducing an approach to writing persuasively, where that general basic approach is used across the classrooms, but then the teacher individualizes it for their particular content area to make it more relevant, because what counts for a relevant detail in English, science, and social studies is likely to differ, and each of those content areas has their own specialized way of how to make an argument, but a general frame can provide a starting point for doing that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ashley. If you'd like to ask them more about how SRSD Reading Strategies improves writing, email us at info@srsdonline.com.